What is going on, you guys? My name is Matt and welcome to Downshift. Today I have something especially extravagant for you guys. We're going to be looking at the latest iteration of the Big Three. Yes, and by Big Three I mean the Big Three. These are the latest offerings from the Germans for the uber luxury sedans. We're going to start with Mercedes-Benz S-Class. This has been the benchmark, the go-to, if you want to cement your status over the other 99%, this is what you get. Now, due to this pomp, this has been the most expensive offering that you can get. Up until now, BMW just dropped their 2020 750. Now, I'm talking about equally equipped V8, V8. This is a little bit more expensive than the Mercedes. This is the first time this has happened, people, and it is for good reason. BMW has a banger here, and I can't wait to show you. And last but not least, we have the Audi A8. This is also very new for this year. This Audi A8 is the least powerful and least expensive among my trio here, but that does not by any means mean it is the least luxurious. Now, as we begin, it's only fair that we start with the king of luxury, the Mercedes-Benz S-Class. For 2019, this is the S560, which essentially means it's the V8. It's Mercedes 4-liter twin turbocharged V8, but we're not here to talk about that just yet. We're here to talk about the design and the aesthetics. And in my opinion, it's a good middle ground. It's not over stylized, it's got a classic elegance to it, but it's not as subtle as the Audi. One of the things that I like about Mercedes is that they kind of differentiate their models in very subtle and distinctive ways, namely in the headlights here. If you buy a C-Class, you get one LED bar. If you buy an E-Class, you get 2 LED bars. And if you have all the money in the world and you would like an S-Class, you get all 3. All 3 together, they look kind of like a feather, and it's a very graceful shape to it. One thing that you'll also notice is that the hood ornament is still there on this S-Class, and it will continue to be there for years to come, regardless of which line you get. And when I say which line, this is the luxury line. You'll see that it's not as aggressive in the front in terms of the lower bumper. You can get a sport line, which is a little bit more aggressive. It would look a little bit more like the BMW. But if you want something tailored back a little bit, I call my luxury line here in this beautiful Designo pearl white paint with the big multi-spoke wheels. I call this the Maybach treatment. It's very classic. It's very old money. Another thing you'll notice from the profile view is that the window colors are a bit off, it seems, and that is because there is a special UV film and protectant built into the windows to protect you from the sun's rays, because getting sunburnt is for peasants. As we get to the back of the car and we finish with the design, I actually am going to bring your attention back up to the front and the headlights. The same 3 LED bars that you get in the headlights are also mirrored in the taillights. They're a little bit thicker, they have the stardust effect, but they're still there. And of course, out back you have dual exhaust, as you would expect, because for this kind of money, things need to be symmetrical. But enough about the exterior. Where you're going to see your money go to work for you is on the interior. So let's jump into the inside of the Mercedes-Benz S560. Now, on the inside of the Mercedes here, I'm not going to talk a whole lot about tech and features and things. It's not too unchanged from the previous generation. And to be quite honest, the people buying these, yeah, it's nice to have, but they're more concerned about what's surrounding them and how they feel driving the car. So I'm going to talk a lot about the design and the materials. I will go ahead and say that this Mercedes S-Class is my favorite in terms of interior design. There's wood graining that wraps around the entire cabin up front here. There's wood graining on the steering wheel. That's not present in the Audi, and it's definitely not present in the BMW. And of course, where it's not wrapped in wood, you have the most supple Nappa leather with exquisite and precise stitching. And then on the wheel, I guess, spokes itself, you have this wonderful machined aluminum. And of course you have the little touch pads to control your center screen, 12.3 inches, and your gauge cluster, another 12.3 inch digital display. It's just really, really nice. Also, it's really cool that they don't just stick these screens on the center of the dash. They actually have it encapsulated and cocooned in this leather blanket. Now that's all well and good, but we need to talk about comfort and luxury. And one of the main things in comfort is obviously your seat. And not only does this seat heat, not only does it cool, but it has a massaging function, a plethora of different massaging functions, I should say, and it just makes for an extremely comfortable and relaxing ride. Now, when you are getting massaged, you probably want to just lay back, put your head back, and enjoy the ride. And you can do so because in this S-Class, you can get things like Distronic Adaptive Cruise and Active Steer Assist to keep you centered in your lane. So this car will damn near drive for you. And then you put your head back on this extremely cushioned headrest, and you just forget about all those peasants outside your car, because the car is going to take care of them for you. Now, all that in the front is well and good, but this is a Mercedes S-Class, and to be quite honest, the best seat in the house is back here. I mean, they even have pillows to show you. Now, when I say the back is the best place to be, I need to be a little bit more specific, because if you're on the back behind the driver's side, it's still very nice and it's very comfortable, and you have a lovely seat that can recline and move for you. But it's behind the passenger is where you want to be. And it's for the simple reason that I can control their seat from back here. It doesn't matter if there's a person there or not. If I want them out of the way, they're getting out of the way. And I still get the cooled seat and the heated seat, and I get peasant blockers and things like that. I can control my window shades automatically. I can control the sunroof, the second sunroof back here, with the touch of a button over here. This really is the most elite way to travel back here. And here we are behind the wheel of the king of luxury, the Mercedes-Benz S-Class. And immediately, one of the things that stands out to me as I push it into a corner here is the active bolstering on the seat. And I think that's really indicative of what this car is and what it represents. This car is about luxury and comfort. So it gives you that bolstering. It doesn't pinch you all the time, but it's adaptive. So it has the comfort there when you need it. But it also comes in because this car is sporty and it's fast. It's very, very powerful, and it has the ability to push you around in your seat due to that power and due to the way that the air suspension composes the chassis and balance, where you feel like you can chuck it into a corner a little bit more. And the airbags and the cushioning and the bolstering is just there to help you. And speaking of the air suspension, it's fantastic. It's so relaxing and smooth and comfortable. If you've never driven one of these cars, you need to drive an S-Class to even understand what I'm talking about when I say smooth and comfort. Now, with all this luxury and comfort stuff in mind, we are going to dial it up a notch and put it into sport mode, because this is not a slouch. This has Mercedes twin turbo 4-liter V8, giving you over 460 horsepower and around the same number in torque. And immediately when you put it up into sport, you feel the air suspension stiffen up a little bit. The bolstering is a little bit quicker. It's a little bit more ready to grab you, because this thing is fast. It's not like the BMW. It doesn't make a show about its takeoffs and its launches and, you know, putting power down. It's not about that. It simply just goes. If you ask it to go and go fast, it will. And if you ask it to go and go slow, it will do that too. But it's so incredibly surprising the way that this thing just puts power down. I think I like being behind the wheel of this one more than any of the others. And one more pull just for good measure. Yeah, it's just the way that the power comes up. It's not loud and aggressive and, you know, very bitey and nimble and jumpy. It's just, here's a whole shitload of power, and now you're going super fast. Now, from the king of luxury, we move to the king of comfort. And before we get inside and address that, we're going to take a look at the exterior. Now, similar to the Mercedes, we're going to start with the headlights, and there's something familiar about them. They have 3 LED bars. They also have a nice LED running bar across the bottom horizontal axis of the headlight casing. Audi has always made some of the most beautiful and elegant headlights, and this is no different. What you're probably being dominated by right now, though, is the massive grille here. This is another classic Audi thing. Every generation seems to get a little bit bigger and bigger grille. BMW is suffering from this elephantitis as well. But the difference is Audi makes it work on this A8. It looks like it fits in. It looks like it's part of the design language, not like it's just, hey, here's a nicely designed car, and then boom, big warthog nose. One thing I actually love about this A8 in terms of the design, it gives it a little bit of pop and a little bit of character and personality. It's the wheels. They have these lovely kind of two-tone gunmetal, aluminum, multi-spoke wheels. They look fantastic. They fit the car especially well. It's a focal point for your eye for something that's In other words, kind of bland. But then as we get to the rear, we have quite possibly the coolest tail light in existence. You know how the M4 GTS came out with those little individual kind of layered LED panels or whatever they were? Well, Audi's done it here, and like I said before with the front, Audi does some of the best light work in the game. But with that, let's hop inside and take a look. Now, if the Mercedes is king of luxury, status, and opulence, the Audi is the king of build materials and just modern design. There's a myriad of different textures and leathers and woods and everything that you could possibly fathom in this cabin. The seats are fantastic. They're cooled, they're heated, they massage. There's aluminum lining the dash. The vents actually come out of a panel of wood, and the wood grain, you can feel the wood grain in here. It's fantastic. And the leather, like I said, everything is just feels and looks extremely expensive and extremely modern. Whereas the Mercedes is kind of old money and it's very kind of swoopy and elegant. The Audis come very much the other way. The Audi is very much contemporary. It's more angular, it's more jagged almost. But it also comes together in a very dignified way. The only thing I don't love about this Audi interior is, well, it starts on that door, runs all the way across here. This is a problem. This, behind the wheel, oh yeah, here, center console area, it's all piano black. So anytime you touch it, you're gonna leave fingerprints and smudges are for peasants. Which leads me to another thing. And while Audi's new infotainment system is possibly one of the best in the biz, it's entirely touchscreen. And if you have a little layer of dust or smudge or dirt, it doesn't respond that well, which would irritate me. But then I'm drawn back into this lovely suede door panel, which is accented by this aluminum, which is accented by this open pore wood, which is accented by some of the smoothest and most hydrated cowhides I've ever felt. Now, same situation as the Mercedes, the back, specifically the back right, is where you want to be. Hold on, excuse me while I recline here. Hold on. Now that I'm nice and reclined, I have to just say, I have a stupid amount of leg room back here. And this passenger seat is not that far forward like it was in the Mercedes. And I still have 2 fists worth of knee room, and I'm fully reclined. And much like the Mercedes, I have buttons to control pretty much my entire environment. I have my peasant blocker up now, but I can put that down with the push of a button. I can also close my rear sunshade if I want to. And if I go over to here, my center control area, I have an actual little iPad thing. It's actually very hot right now. I don't know if this has anything to do with the car being on, but I can control everything from here. I can control my seat, I can control what's on this screen, I can see everything about the car. We are now behind the wheel of the Audi A8. Now, immediately behind the wheel of this Audi, it's an extremely different vibe than I had behind the wheel of the BMW. Behind the wheel of the BMW, I felt like I needed to push. I feel like I needed to get the most out of the car. Like I needed to, drive faster, turn harder, brake later. Behind the wheel of this, I don't feel any of that. I don't feel any desire to go fast or exceed the speed limit or pitch it into a corner or anything like that. This thing is exceedingly comfortable. The suspension it's got air springs, so it's extremely plush and soft. The digital gauge cluster is fantastic, and I have every bit of information that I need right next to me. The air suspension on this is soft and it's smooth. The steering is light, but it's precise. And the engine is fine. It's not super powerful, but it's not a slouch either. I have it in comfort mode now, and we'll dial it up to sport like we did in the BMW, but this is far and away the most relaxing car that I think I've been in the last year. You can tell that the cabin was designed with just ergonomics and comfort and relaxation in mind. You get your seat massager on, and it's so pleasant to be behind the wheel. If I'm gonna take a long road trip in any of these cars, it's gonna be in this one. All right, we're in dynamic mode. We've got all 355 horsepower from this turbocharged V6 at our disposal. And as soon as this light turns green, we're gonna punch it. Here we go. It doesn't wake up until about 3,000, and then it pulls from about 3,000 to about 4,000 RPM, and then it shifts gears. Of course, I can shift myself if I want to, but can't be bothered to do that. Not in my A8 long wheelbase. It's enough power for what you need this car to be. But with that said, this car is not about driving performance or sport or anything like that. It's about luxury, comfort, and convenience. And it gives you all these amenities and everything that you need to drive safe. I mean, you get like a night vision, you get all the driver assist systems and all the driver aids that you would possibly want or expect in something at this price point. And it just all comes together in a package that's so easy, that's so usable. This is probably the nicest car that I've driven this year. And finally, we wrap with the newest and most controversial of the bunch. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the massive grille. Every journalist and their mom has already covered that. I will actually say with this M Sport appearance package, it actually is not as offensive in person as it is in some of the photos that you see online. You have these big intakes and these big vents built into the front bumper, and it kind of offsets the maybe a little bit too big sized grille. And when it comes to headlights, BMW's got a modern interpretation of their classic angel eye themed headlights. And I gotta say, it looks really good. You can actually get laser headlights on this. Ultimately, the front is obviously the most aggressive, it's the most sporting, and it's the most imposing. It doesn't quite look as elegant or plush as the other two, but I don't think it's supposed to. If it did, it actually wouldn't fit the personality of this car. This is a driver's car. This is a BMW. This is the ultimate driving machine, right? Now, some of my favorite things about cars are their wheels. You can tell a lot about a car's personality based on the wheel choices. You have a large multi-spoke wheel on the A8, and you have the same on the Mercedes. However, a multi-spoke typically, not always, but typically, conveys a sense of luxury and comfort. And while this BMW embodies all those same traits, the wheels make me think that it just does it, but a little bit faster. Love these wheels. And in typical 7 Series fashion, we have BMW's hockey stick running and extracting air from the front wheels and then running down the length of the doors. The BMW is much more dimensional, it's much more geometric, and it's just a bit more aggressive on the profile, same thing as it is up front. And then terminating in the back, we have a pretty familiar style taillight that we've come to expect from the 3 Series actually. It's a very simple design, but it looks very good and distinguished. Now, in contrast to the 3 Series, this 7 Series is actually sporting a taillight that goes all the way across the length of the trunk. And that, along with the chrome bar, just gives it the added dimension that a 7 Series needs to distinguish itself over its 3 Series brother. And then moving down to the exhaust tips, we have the most of any car here. We have quad exhaust, and it sounds amazing. So ultimately, design is what you would expect. The BMW is the most aggressive and in your face, the Mercedes is the most classically elegant, and the Audi is the most subtle and understated with a hint and indication of modern contemporary. But let's jump into the BMW and see how the newest rival from Bavaria stacks up to the rest of the pack. So we've been in the Mercedes, where the design and the layout of the cabin is the most domineering trait of the car. And we've been in the Audi, where the build materials and the diversity of textures is really the domineering trait. And then we move on to the BMW, which is, of the three, probably my least favorite, but that's not to say it's offensive or bad in any way. It's just very familiar to other BMWs that I've been in. The new 3 Series, the center stack and the wheel is exactly the same. Same thing with the 5 Series and the 8 Series and pretty much everything else. It's just very, very similar. Sure, there are some things that are different, and you have extremely nice wood graining here across the dash and down into your center console here, but a lot of it is just the same, but just a touch better. One thing that's the same, but I'm absolutely not complaining about, is BMW's Idrive system. This is probably one of, if not the best in the biz, and it's got a bunch of Easter eggs in there. You guys can go and look at the specs yourself, but it's a fantastic system. It works incredibly well. The backup camera actually turns with you while you turn up the wheel and things like that. But everything in this cabin is ergonomic, it makes sense, it's familiar, and it just works. And I know this is the driver's car, and the focal point is right here where I'm sitting, but let's jump into the back and just see how it compares to the other two. Now, similar to the front of this BMW, the rear it's nice, but it's probably my least favorite of the three. I have plenty of leg room, but I cannot recline or adjust my seat in any way. I don't have a peasant blocker. I do, however, have a button to control the rear sunshade and the rear sunroof, but there's nothing really going on in the center console except for some storage, whereas the other two had a lot going on. That's not to say that this is bad or uncomfortable in any way. I still feel very much at home and very, serene back here, but I can't help feeling like I'd be a little bit more at home up behind the wheel. All right, we're gonna set off in the BMW in comfort mode, and that's important because we can't lose sight of what these cars are. These are large luxury limousines, and their intent is to be comfortable. If you want a fast sedan, BMW has a bunch of different offerings for you, but this is their 7 Series. This is their flagship. This is the best that they can do in terms of luxury and opulence and comfort. And I have to say they do a great job. It's extremely comfortable for me just driving down the road here. Typically when I get behind the wheel of a BMW, I want to push it. I want to, put it into Sport Plus and get the exhaust loud and, just do a pull. And I still want to do that here. It's just, I don't feel like I need to as much. And I'm sitting here with my massager on, and while I'm very, very comfortable, I'm also very aware of how much this car weighs. The suspension and the chassis control in a corner is very good. There is some lean, but that's to be expected. It's to soften up bumps. It's to give the suspension a little bit more travel to accommodate things like these terrible roads in Milwaukee here. I'm going to put it into a corner right here and show you guys exactly what I mean. There we go. Yeah, and in the Mercedes I'll have active bolstering and I won't move around in my seat as much, but it's still extremely comfortable and it's quiet. That's the thing. In comfort mode, it's very quiet, it's very livable, and it's very relaxing. This is probably one of the most relaxing BMWs I've ever been in. But to hell with that, we're going into sport and we're gonna have some BMW fun. Ooh. And just like that, with the push of a button, this thing just pops into life. This is very much more familiar for me, being behind the wheel of this in sport mode. You still have an extremely comfortable and soft suspension. It's fantastic. It feels so floaty, but you have all the power and the sharpness that you've come to expect from these BMW performance sedans. This is BMW's 4.4 liter V8 twin turbo, making about 523 horsepower, and I think it's about 553 pound-feet of torque. This is no slouch in terms of an engine. This is a lot of fun. And this thing is made with the carbon core, so it's got lightness in mind, and once you put it into Sport Plus, you really feel that. The engine is sharp, the gearbox is quick and responsive, and while the suspension and chassis is still very floaty and very comfortable, it still does exactly what you want it to do. Now, I will say there's no feedback in this whatsoever, but there's not feedback in any of these cars. So if that's what you're looking for, go back down to the M5, get an M550, do something else. This is not what you want if you want something like that. If you want something that is uber luxurious and incredibly, unequivocally comfortable, but can still blow the doors off of almost anything on the road, this is what you want. This is the most fun you'll have in any of these 3 cars. So there you have it, guys. Those are Europe's big 3. These are some of the most luxurious cars that money can buy today. And to be completely honest, each one is suited to a different thing. We have the Audi A8, and while it doesn't look like much from the outside, on the inside there's a lot going on to make this the most comfortable and relaxing car among the 3. And then we have the BMW, which is very much the other direction. This is very much the driver's car of the 3. In the other 2, you get driven. In the BMW, you drive. And for simple reason that it's still fantastic to drive. It's quick, it's responsive, it's just fun at 5,000 pounds. And last but not least is the classic Prussian aristocrat, the Mercedes S-Class. This, like I said, has defined this segment, luxury, opulence, wealth, status for decades, and it continues to do so today. It's a beautiful culmination of design, materials, textures, and feel. This is one of the smoothest yet most powerful cars in this lineup here. So bearing that in mind, what would you have? Would you have the comfortable and modern Audi? Would you have the sporty and engaging BMW? Or would you just want to look like you're better than everyone else? Leave it down in the comments, guys. I would love to know what you would pick among these 3. I would also love to know which 2 you would like to see me go more in depth in a more serious head-to-head. But with that, thank you so much for watching, guys. If you want to see more, go ahead and click these info cards here and here. We have the BMW M340 taking on its big brother, the M3, and down here we have some of the most rugged off-road trucks battling it out.